Hey guys, promised I'd make a video tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Got some notes here I wrote up, and this is going to be tips for prepping for a campaign. This isn't prepping for an individual session. This isn't what I do before I run a session. This is what I plan to do from now on. I put a lot of thought into this, and this is what I'm going to do from now on when I start a new campaign. Now, first rule would be to know the rules that you're planning on running. You want to know them well. Read the entire book. Now, I don't expect you to remember everything, and you shouldn't expect yourself either, but maybe have your players read the book too. I mean, like, I've run games before for players who didn't know the system, and to be honest, it's not really that great of an idea. Try to get your players to read the rules as well. This will benefit in two ways. For one, they won't have to ask as many questions at the table, and two, when you're uncertain of something, they might be able to remember that bit of the book that you forgot, or vice versa. I would say another rule for knowing the rules and following the rules is try not to house rule things until you feel it's relevant. A problem that I've had is I would read through a rules system, and before I even play the game, I would have house rules in mind. What I'm going to try to do from now on is just run the game straight out of the book, and change what I believe needs to be changed. Now, if it's a system that runs off of like the D20 system and you already know how the D20 system works for the most part, you might be able to have some leniency there and make some house rules for a system that you're already familiar with. But for the most part, if you are brand new to a rule system, try out everything they have to offer. If you don't like it afterwards, then you might want to change it, or you might want to try to find a different system. Another thing is you want to know your setting. You want to know your setting very well. I've played plenty of games where I've improv'd, and they're fine for the session, but overall it ruins my campaigns because I didn't put thought into that session. I just kind of went with it when I got there, and then when the next session comes around, I'm probably going to improv that one too. And what I have to do is I have to try to remember everything from last session and work off of it. Now, this is a lot of work that you're putting on yourself. Granted, prepping is a lot of work by itself, but at least having it there before you, at least your work is well worth it. If you're going to use a pre-made setting, read up on it. You want to try to read as much of that book as possible. Now, there are some things in certain setting books that aren't 100% necessary to run, because some of it's more for players, but you should probably at least skim over that stuff and get an idea of that information as well. But you want to focus on the history, the culture, the religion, and the main focal points of the world. Like, you want to know the big cities, you want to know the rulers, you want to know what religions hold power where, or if all religions are kind of equal. It's important to know those kind of things. Now, if you're creating a setting for yourself, the first thing I would say is ask yourself why. Why are you creating the setting? Now, if you at least have an answer that you find to be valid, then go from there. But don't just make a setting just because you want to make a setting to an extent. Like, don't just do it to do it. Do it because you have passion for it, or because you would really like to get a certain thing out of a setting that you just can't find, so you want to make it yourself. Now, the reason I would personally suggest maybe using a pre-made setting if you don't have a lot of experience with running the games is because making a setting is a lot more work than just read the book. You can go in there with a half-assed idea as to what you want out of your setting, but you're not going to get that full experience. Tip number 3 would be to know your players. If you know the people well that you're going to be playing with, think about the kind of things they already like. Think about what you believe they would want to see in the game, what they would work off of, what they would really enjoy, what's going to get them going, what's going to make them stand up out of their chairs and just get really down deep into the game. But if you don't know your players that well, try to run something a little more basic, a little more open-ended. Think of different things that usually interest players and try to get a good mix of it going. Try to analyze your players, figure out what really makes them tick, and then go from there. Tip number 4 would be lay your groundwork. Give your players a general idea of what they'll be doing in the campaign. You want to explain the setting and give them enough information about the setting and about what you plan to do with the campaign so that they can properly make their characters. You don't want people coming in with characters that just blatantly don't fit the setting at all, because then you get to the table and they're sitting there with this character concept they've been working on for maybe a week or so, and they're ready to play this character, and you have to tell them that it just doesn't have a home, or that you have to adjust to the setting, and that sucks. And granted, if you told them and then they went ahead and did this anyways, then it's their fault for the most part. But if you didn't give them any idea of what was going to be happening in this campaign and they created something, you really can't blame them. A good way to solve this would be to possibly just have a character creation session. Sorry. This is a good way to hammer out all the questions that they may have. And also, it tends to be better because everybody's working off of each other. One guy might have a straight up idea of what he wants to do, and this other guy has no idea what he wants to do. But these guys are best friends in real life. So one guy's like, oh, I'm going to be a dwarf, and I'm going to be the son of this well-known blacksmith of the city, and blah, blah, blah. And that guy will be like, oh, you know what? I could be the apprentice of that blacksmith. You know, we're not necessarily related, but we become friends because I work for your father, something like that, you know? And then there you go, you got that connection. It's so much easier to start off a campaign when the players already know each other's characters somewhat, than just throwing them into a tavern and saying, go from there. I personally have a hard time doing that kind of stuff. Throwing random players together with random characters, it's a little harder for me. Tip number 5, try to create an end goal for your game. You know, if you don't completely understand where you want to go with this game or with the campaign, at least have a general idea of where it's going. You know, is there a big bad guy that the players will sooner or later come into contact with, and will they have to choose whether to join the big bad or will they have to fight him? Maybe there's going to be a scene where the big bad shows up when they're a lower level and you don't intend for them to fight him, and he does something that the players just really can't control, and maybe that causes a lot of drama at the table, and they really want to get to this guy now. Or maybe it's just as simple as they work for the Thieves Guild and you don't know exactly where you want to go with it, and you're just going to kind of let them take it on its own path. But you have to have an idea as to where you want to go. And as just a random tip, try to get feedback as much as possible before and after you start the campaign. When you run your idea past your players, don't set it in stone right away. Try to see how they feel about your concept for the campaign. Maybe see what they would like to see out of it. And if it works for you, then maybe integrate it into your ideas. Try to see if you can work it out. If a majority of the players like it and one guy has a problem, then maybe you can work that out with that player. But it's always better to try to get that out of the way first off. And after the first session is always a good time to get feedback. Maybe your combat is lacking. Maybe there was too much combat. Maybe one guy felt a little bit useless because he focused more on his character's skills than combat, and you didn't have enough skill checks in the game. Just anything. Maybe they didn't feel you were role playing enough. Maybe they felt they didn't have enough role playing experience. You never know. But nonetheless, that's the most I have to say for all this. Give me your feedback in the comments below. See you guys.